Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Silent Fear. Where are you watching from tonight and what time is it in your country? Have you shared my channel with your friends yet, or are you keeping these whispers all to yourself? Here we explore chilling true crime and eerie mysteries, stories that slip between fact and nightmare. Tonight I have another dark tale for you, the disturbing true crime of a quiet librarian who vanished without a trace. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that low, unsettling hum, and let's drift into tonight's journey together. You are standing in the middle of a library at 3 in the morning. The smell of old paper is thick, like the dust of 1,000 lives you never lived. You look down at your hands and realize you're holding a single index card. It's blank. In the distance, you hear the soft thud of a book falling off a shelf. You aren't alone, but then again, in a place built for the dead thoughts of authors, are you ever? This reminds me of Mary Shotwell Little. In 1965, she was a librarian in Atlanta. One day, she just stopped being. She went to dinner, did some shopping, and then her car was found the next morning in the same lot, her groceries still in the back, her underwear neatly folded on the seat. It's almost considerate of the kidnapper, isn't it? Leaving the laundry organized. Researchers still argue whether the mysterious secret admirer who sent her roses in the weeks leading up to her disappearance was a romantic or just a very dedicated stalker with a green thumb. There's an old urban legend about phantom libraries. Buildings that appear in the fog of small towns, filled with books that haven't been written yet. They say if you check a book out, you have to return it before the sun rises, or you become part of the bibliography. Honestly, with the way late fees are going these days, I'd rather just be kidnapped by a ghost. It's cheaper than paying for a lost copy of The Great Gatsby. You walk toward the sound of the fallen book. Your footsteps are muffled by the heavy carpet. It feels like the building is breathing, the HVAC system exhaling a cold, stale sigh against the back of your neck. Why is it that libraries are so peaceful during the day and so predatory at night? It's like the stories want to get out. You see a shadow move at the end of the aisle. You tell yourself it's just your eyes playing tricks on you, but your eyes have never been particularly funny. If I were a librarian who wanted to disappear, I'd at least leave a gone fishing sign, not a pile of laundry. It's the lack of closure that really gets you. It's like a joke without a punchline or a YouTube video that ends right before well, you get it. You reach the end of the aisle and find the book. It's a ledger. You open it, and your name is written on every single page, dated for tomorrow. The library fades, and suddenly you are standing in the hallway of a house you don't recognize, yet the floorboards groan with a familiarity that makes your skin crawl. This is a house of improvements. You see a staircase that leads directly into the ceiling. You see a door that opens to a 3-story drop into a dark kitchen. It feels like the house was built by someone who forgot what humans look like. This is the architectural equivalent of a panic attack. Think of the Winchester Mystery House, where Sarah Winchester kept builders working 24/7 because she thought the ghosts of those killed by Winchester rifles would find her if the hammers ever stopped. It's a great strategy. If you can't find your own bathroom, neither can the spirits of the vengeful dead. Historians continue to debate if she was truly mad or just the world's most eccentric victim of a construction scam. In some circles, there's a superstition about heartbeat walls. It's the belief that if you bury a clock or something more organic inside the lath and plaster, the house will gain a soul and protect you. But protection usually comes at a price, like a mortgage that requires more than just money. You place your ear against the floral wallpaper. Thump, thump, thump. It's rhythmic, it's steady, and it's definitely not your own heart. You start to wonder if the librarian from the previous story is in here, behind the drywall. Maybe she didn't vanish. Maybe she just became insulation. It would explain why the house stays so quiet. Most people complain about their neighbors being loud, but I'd be more worried about the neighbor who hasn't made a sound since the Ford administration. At least a loud neighbor is alive, a quiet one is a mystery, and mysteries have a habit of ending up on this channel. You walk deeper into the house. The air grows warmer, smelling of old copper and wet wool. You find a small hatch near the floorboards. It shouldn't be there. You open it expecting a crawl space, but instead, you see a tiny, perfectly furnished dining room lit by a single candle. There's a plate of food steaming on the table. Someone, or something, is expecting you. I've always wanted a house with a secret room, mostly so I could hide from the delivery drivers who want to talk about my extended warranty. But a secret room that smells like pot roast and dread, that's where I draw the line. You realize the thumping is getting faster now. The house is excited. You finally made it to dinner. The small room in the wall begins to stretch, the wallpaper turning into the rough, gray bark of eucalyptus trees. The smell of pot roast is replaced by the dry, eucalyptus-heavy air of the Australian bush. You are standing at the base of Hanging Rock. It's noon, but the sun feels heavy, like it's pressing you into the red earth. You look at your wrist. Your watch has stopped. This brings us to the legend of the girls who went up the rock in 1900 and simply evaporated. While the famous story is a work of fiction, it's based on the very real, very unsettling atmosphere of the area, where people frequently go missing in the labyrinths of stone. Researchers still argue whether the magnetic anomalies of the rock affect human consciousness, or if people are just really bad at not walking off cliffs. There are whispers among the local occultists about time slips at the rock places, where the veil between the past and the present is as thin as a moth's wing. Some say you can hear the laughter of schoolgirls from a century ago, muffled by the stone. Personally, if I'm hiking and I hear phantom laughter, I'm not investigating. I'm becoming the fastest version of myself in the opposite direction. I don't need a time slip. I need a GPS and a heavy dose of reality. You notice that even the birds have stopped singing. You see a white ribbon snagged on a jagged piece of granite. It looks exactly like the one you saw in the librarian's car, folded neatly on the seat. The connections are starting to feel less like coincidences and more like a net. You start to climb. The rock is hot beneath your palms. You feel a strange urge to take off your shoes, to feel the ancient stone against your skin. You remember the scholarly debate about the liminal space of the Australian outback, where the landscape itself is considered a living entity. If the landscape is alive, it must get hungry. And you look like a very appetizing snack in those hiking boots. You reach a plateau and see 3 figures in the distance, wearing Victorian white dresses. They are staring at the sun without blinking. You want to call out to them, but your voice is gone. It's as if the rock has swallowed your sound, filing it away in a ledger like a lost book. You realize that losing time isn't a metaphor here. You've been climbing for 5 minutes, but the sun is already setting. The sun dips below the horizon of Hanging Rock. But instead of the bush, you find yourself lying on the cold, damp sand of Somerton Beach. It's 1948. The air is salty and sharp. You try to stand up, but your limbs feel like lead. You look at your clothes. The labels have all been carefully cut out. You reach into your pocket and find a small, rolled-up piece of paper with the words, "Tamam Shud, it is ended." This is the mystery of the Somerton Man, a well-dressed corpse found on an Australian beach with no identification and a hidden pocket containing a scrap from a rare book of Persian poetry. Historians continue to debate if he was a Cold War spy or just a man who really hated brand names. I mean, I get it, labels can be itchy, but cutting them out of your socks seems like a lot of work for a guy who's about to die. There's a fringe theory that the Somerton Man was a sleeper agent who was literally put to sleep by a frequency emitted from the very beach he was found on. Some theorists believe the code found in his copy of the Rubaiyat isn't a code at all, but a set of coordinates for a place that doesn't exist on our maps. It's like a deadly version of a scavenger hunt, except the prize is a permanent nap on a windy beach. You look down at the scrap of paper. The handwriting looks familiar. It's the same script you saw in the library ledger and the letters in the house with the heartbeat walls. It seems everyone in this narrative is a fan of calligraphy. You see a man walking toward you through the morning mist. He's wearing a suit, and he's carrying a suitcase that seems to be dripping water. You try to move, but you are part of the scenery now. You are the mystery. You think about the young blood mentioned in the letters from the house. Is that what they wanted? to cut the labels out of your life and leave you as a blank page in a phantom library. It's a bit dramatic for my taste. I'd prefer a mystery that involves a winning lottery ticket and a tropical island, but we take what we can get. The man in the suit stops a few feet away. He doesn't have a face, just a smooth, pale surface where features should be. He reaches into his suitcase and pulls out a white ribbon. He lays it gently on your chest. The sound of the waves becomes the sound of the heartbeat in the walls. You realize that "Tamam Shud" isn't just a phrase. It's a set of instructions. The beach dissolves into a frozen field in Bavaria. The year is 1922. You are standing outside a lonely farmstead called Hinterkaifeck. The air is so cold it hurts to breathe. You see footprints in the snow. They lead from the woods directly to the house. There are no footprints leading back. Someone is inside, and they've been there for days, watching, waiting, and probably eating all the leftovers in the fridge. This is the site of one of Germany's most gruesome unsolved crimes. 6 people were murdered with a mattock, including a new maid who had just arrived that day. Talk about a bad first day at work. Most people just deal with a broken coffee machine. She dealt with a literal axe man in the attic. Researchers still argue whether the killer was a neighbor, a vengeful ghost, or a man who had been living in their ceiling for months. There's an obscure bit of folklore about the shadow guest, a spirit that enters a home through the footprints of a stranger. If you don't sweep the tracks away before sunset, the guest becomes the host. It's basically the ultimate uninvited house guest scenario. I thought my cousin staying for a weekend was bad, but at least he didn't bring a mattock. Well, not a sharp one anyway. You walk toward the barn. The door is slightly ajar. You can hear the cattle lowing inside, a mournful, heavy sound. You remember the heartbeat in the walls and the ticking clocks at Hanging Rock. It's all the same rhythm. You see a mattock leaning against the wall, its blade stained with something dark that hasn't quite frozen yet. You look up at the attic window. A face is looking back. It's the face of the librarian, but her eyes are the color of the lead masks you haven't seen yet. She isn't asking for help. She's pointing at the floorboards beneath your feet. You realize that the extra heartbeats in the house weren't just a metaphor. They were a head count. The wind howls through the gaps in the barn, sounding like a Persian poem whispered in a dead man's ear. You start to understand the secret admirer now. It's the house itself. It's the rock. It's the cold Bavarian earth. They all want the same thing, to keep you. And honestly, in this economy, free housing is free housing, even if it comes with a side of existential dread and a missing maid. The barn walls melt away, and you are no longer in the freezing cold of Bavaria. Instead, you are climbing a steep, tropical hill in Rio de Janeiro. The year is 1966. The humidity is like a wet blanket, and the smell of ozone is thick in the air. You are wearing a formal suit, just like the Somerton Man, and in your hand you carry 2 crude lead masks. They feel heavy, like the weight of a secret you weren't supposed to hear. This is the mystery of Vintum Hill, where 2 electronic technicians were found dead, lying side by side, wearing suits, waterproof coats, and these lead masks. No signs of struggle, no cause of death, just a notebook with instructions to swallow capsules and wait for a signal. Historians continue to debate if they were trying to contact aliens or if they were just the victims of a very high-stakes, very weird spiritualist scam. In the darker corners of UFO lore, there's a belief that lead acts as a spiritual filter, allowing the wearer to see frequencies of light that are usually reserved for the dying. It's like a DIY pair of night vision goggles for the soul. I'm all for new experiences, but if a signal requires me to wear a lead mask and take mystery pills on a muddy hill, I think I'll just stay home and watch Netflix. It's safer for the liver. You reach the summit. The grass is flattened in a perfect circle. You feel a vibration in your teeth, the same low, unsettling hum I told you to look for at the start of our journey. You put the mask on. Everything turns a dull, metallic gray. Through the narrow eye slits, you see the farmstead of Hinterkaifeck shimmering in the heat haze, and the schoolgirls of Hanging Rock waving to you from the tall grass. You realize the capsules are the same as the young blood and the Tamam Shud scrap. They are tokens of entry. You look at your companion, the faceless man from the beach. He is already lying down, his lead mask reflecting the strange purple lightning that is beginning to crackle in the clouds above. He looks peaceful, which is more than I can say for my last attempt at a peaceful night's sleep. You feel a sudden urge to check the library ledger one last time. You know your name is there, but now you understand the date. Tomorrow is a relative term when you're wearing a lead mask on a haunted hill. The signal is coming. It's a bright, blinding flash that tastes like copper and sounds like a librarian closing a very heavy book. The purple lightning of Vintham Hill transforms into a blinding white blizzard. You are standing on a thatched roof in Devon, England. It's the winter of 1855, the Great Frost. The world is encased in ice, and the only sound is the cracking of frozen branches. You look down and see them, a single line of hoofprints, U-shaped and strange, marching across the snow-covered shingles. They don't stop for walls. They don't stop for fences. They go over houses and under haystacks as if the terrain simply didn't exist. This is the mystery of the Devil's Footprints. For over 100 miles, these marks appeared in a single night. Researchers still argue whether it was a mass hallucination, an escaped experimental balloon, or if the Prince of Darkness just decided to go for a very long, very cold midnight stroll. Some cryptozoologists suggest the footprints weren't made by something walking on the snow, but by something unfolding from beneath it, a subterranean entity that mimics the shapes it thinks we fear. It's like a Rorschach test for the paranoid. Personally, if the devil is walking on my roof, I'm just glad he's not trying to sell me a timeshare. He can have the shingles. I'm staying by the fire with a stout lock on the door. You follow the prints. They lead you to a window. You look inside and see the house with the heartbeat walls. The shadow guest from Hinterkaifeck is sitting at the table, eating the pot roast from the secret room. He looks up and winks at you. It's a very casual gesture for a supernatural entity. It's as if he's telling you that the footprints aren't leading away from the mystery. They're leading you deeper into the house. You realize the hoofprints are the same shape as the lead masks. The U isn't a hoof, it's a portal. Every step is a point where two worlds touched for a fraction of a second. You think about the librarian again. Did she follow these prints? Did she step into one of those U shapes and just keep walking? It would explain why she didn't take her groceries. Where she was going, they don't have supermarkets. The frost begins to creep up your legs, turning your suit into a leaden casing. You feel the signal from the hill vibrating in the ice beneath your feet. The footprints are starting to glow with a soft, bioluminescent light. You have a choice: stay on the roof and freeze, or follow the tracks through the chimney and see what's for dinner. I've always been a fan of a home-cooked meal, even if the host has hooves. The snowy roof of Devon dissolves into the sterile gray walls of Broadmoor Hospital. You are sitting on a cot, and across from you sits your identical twin. You are June and Jennifer Gibbons, the silent twins. You haven't spoken to a soul in decades, except for the whispered secret language you share. A language that sounds like the rustling of library pages and the hum of a lead mask. The story of the twins is a heartbreaking true crime of the mind. They had a pact: if one died, the other had to start speaking and live a normal life. They actually decided which one would have to die. Jennifer took the hit. Shortly after her death, June spoke for the first time, saying, "I'm free at last." Historians continue to debate if this was a psychic bond or a shared obsessive delusion that turned lethal. There's an obscure psychological theory called folie à deux, where two people share the exact same hallucination so perfectly that it becomes a physical reality for them. Some believe the silent twins didn't just share a language, they shared a single soul, and the body wasn't big enough for both of them. It's like a biological version of a buy one, get one free deal, except nobody wants the second one if it comes with a vow of silence. You look at your twin. Her eyes are the color of the ice in Devon. She leans in and whispers a single word in your ear, to Mom. It's ended. The pact is complete. You realize that you are the one who has to stay. You are the one who has to carry the memories of the librarian, the Somerton man, and the lead masks. You are the bibliography of the phantom library. The room starts to fill with the smell of eucalyptus from hanging rock. You realize that the silent language you spoke wasn't just words, it was the frequency, the hum, the signal. You were broadcasting the mystery into the world, one silent look at a time. It's a heavy burden being the narrator of a story that doesn't want to be told. You stand up and walk to the door. For the first time, you find it unlocked. But as you step into the hallway, you see the shadow guest waiting for you. He's holding a ledger. He wants you to sign your name, but not as a visitor. He wants you to sign as the new librarian. And as we know, the late fees in this place are absolute murder. The hospital corridor stretches and warps until it becomes a frozen mountainside in the Urals. It's 1959. You are in a tent, huddled against the howling wind. Suddenly, a sound tears through the air, a low-frequency vibration that makes your organs feel like they're being shaken in a tin can. You don't think. You just grab a knife, slash the tent from the inside, and run out into the waist-deep snow, wearing nothing but your socks. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident, where 9 experienced hikers died under bizarre circumstances. Some had crushed ribs with no external bruising. One was missing a tongue. Others were found weeks later with skin that had turned a strange orange hue. Researchers still argue whether it was an avalanche, a secret Soviet weapon test, or infrasound caused by the wind that drove them into a primal suicidal panic. There's a fringe theory about the mountain that swallows, a geographic anomaly that acts like a giant acoustic mirror, reflecting the sound of the Earth's rotation back at anyone standing on its peak. It's the ultimate bad vibe. If I'm camping and the mountain starts vibrating my soul out of my body, I'm not just cutting the tent, I'm becoming a professional indoor enthusiast for the rest of my life. You are running toward a cedar tree at the edge of the forest. You see the footprints in the snow, the same hoofprints from Devon, the same barefoot tracks from Hinterkaifeck. They are leading you to a fire that isn't giving off any heat. You see the silent twins sitting by the flames, their orange skin glowing in the dark. They aren't cold, they're tamam. You realize the infrasound is the same signal from Vintum Hill. It's the frequency of the house's heartbeat. It's the sound of the rock at Hanging Rock. Everything is connected by this one, low, unsettling hum. You look down at your hands. They are turning orange. You aren't dying, you're being indexed. You're becoming a permanent resident of the pass. A man in a lead mask steps out from behind the cedar tree. He offers you a white ribbon. You take it, and the sound of the wind stops instantly. In the silence, you hear a librarian's voice. She's reading your name from the ledger, but she's reading it in the silent language of the twins. You realize you don't need the tent anymore. You have the mountain. The mountain of Dyatlov Pass crumbles into a pile of gravel in a suburban driveway in New Jersey. You are standing in front of 657 Boulevard, a beautiful, stately home that looks like the American dream. You've just moved in. You check the mailbox and find a letter. It isn't a bill. It's a greeting from the Watcher. I am the Watcher, and have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The letter reads, "Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested?" This is the true story of a family who was driven out of their dream home by a series of increasingly disturbing letters. Historians continue to debate if the Watcher was a disgruntled neighbor, a previous owner, or a very elaborate hoax by the buyers themselves. There's an old superstition about letter wraiths, spirits that can only enter a home if their name is written and then read aloud within the walls. By reading the Watcher's letters, the family was essentially inviting him in for tea and a side of stalking. I'm a fan of old-fashioned mail, but if someone starts asking about my young blood, I'm switching to paperless billing and moving to a bunker in the desert. You walk inside. The house is silent, but you can feel the heartbeat walls vibrating against your palms. You hear a scratching sound from the attic. You remember the footprints leading into the attic at Hinterkaifeck. You remember the librarian who vanished. Is she the one writing the letters? Is she the Watcher? It would be a great career pivot for a librarian, from organizing books to organizing your nightmares. You find another letter tucked under the baseboard in the secret room. It contains a scrap of Persian poetry and a Tamam Shud sticker. The Watcher is a fan of the classics, it seems. You realize that the house isn't just being watched, it's being curated. You are just the latest exhibit in a museum of domestic dread. The hum is getting louder now. It's coming from the basement. You walk down the stairs, and you see the shadow guest from Devon sitting in a lawn chair, holding a pair of binoculars. He's looking at the house across the street. He hands you a lead mask and a pen. "It's your turn to write," he says. You realize the Watcher isn't one person. It's a subscription service. The suburban basement of Westfield expands into the dark, cramped rooms of a small house in Villisca, Iowa. The year is 1912. The air is thick with the smell of old grease and iron. All the mirrors in the house are covered with thin gray cloths. All the windows are draped in black. You are standing in a bedroom where 8 people were murdered in their sleep by a man who used the blunt end of an axe. This is the Villisca Axe House mystery. The killer stayed in the house for hours after the murders, covering the faces of the victims and the mirrors. Researchers still argue whether the killer was a traveling preacher with a dark side or a local businessman who had a very violent way of settling debts. Honestly, if you're going to kill someone with an axe, the least you can do is not hang around to do the laundry and cover the mirrors. It's just weird. In some traditions, covering mirrors after a death is done to prevent the soul from getting lost in the reflection and becoming a mirror ghost. If the killer covered the mirrors before he left, he wasn't just a murderer. He was an occultist. He wanted to trap the young blood inside the glass. It's like a Victorian version of an iCloud backup, but much more permanent and significantly more stabby. You reach out and pull the cloth off the mirror in the hallway. You don't see your own face. You see the Somerton man lying on the beach. You see the librarian shelving books in the Phantom Library. You see the orange-skinned hikers of Dyatlov Pass. They are all looking at you through the silver backing. You realize the mirrors aren't reflections, they're windows. The signal from the hill is vibrating through the axe handle you find leaning against the wall. It's the same matic from Hinterkaifeck. The connections are closing in like a tightening knot. You hear the watcher whispering in the walls. He's not watching the house anymore. He's watching the mirrors. And you just gave him a clear view. You feel a cold hand on your shoulder. It's the silent twin, Jennifer. She points to the axe. Tamam, she says. You realize that the signal isn't a message from aliens. It's a command. The cycle of the axe, the mountain, the rock, and the house is all part of one continuous story. And you are the one holding the blunt end of the narrative now. The axe house of Villisca blurs into a dusty roadside in Circleville, Ohio. The year is 1977. You are driving a bus, and you keep seeing signs, literally. Handwritten signs on the side of the road telling everyone your deepest, darkest secrets. Then come the letters. Thousands of them sent to everyone in town, accusing you of things you haven't even thought of doing yet. This is the Circleville Rider mystery. For years, an anonymous author terrorized the town with letters that seemed to know everything. Even when a man was sent to prison for it, the letters kept coming, postmarked from the same place. Historians continue to debate if the letters were a town-wide conspiracy or the work of a single, omniscient sociopath with a very large budget for postage. There's an obscure bit of male magic lore that says if you write a lie enough times and send it to enough people, the lie becomes the truth. The world reshapes itself to fit the words. It's the ultimate fake-it-till-you-make-it strategy, but for ruining lives. If someone starts sending me letters about my secret life, I hope they at least make it sound exciting. Most of my secrets involve how many cookies I can eat in one sitting. You pull over and check your mailbox. Inside is a lead mask and a letter. The handwriting is the same as the watcher's, the librarian's ledger, and the Tamam Shud scrap. We know about the mirrors, the letter says. We know about the axe. You realize the writer isn't in Circleville. The writer is in the Phantom Library, and they've been documenting your every move since the moment you stepped into the stacks. The hum of the signal is coming from the radio now. It's not music, it's the sound of a pen scratching on paper. You look out the window and see the shadow guest from Hinterkaifeck putting up a new sign. It has your name on it, followed by the word next. You realize the young blood wasn't for the house, it was for the ink. You start to write a letter back, but you realize your hands are already covered in black ink. You aren't the victim anymore, you're the co-author. You are helping the writer finish the bibliography. You think about the silent twins and their pact. One has to stay to tell the story. And you've already signed the ledger. The dusty roads of Ohio are replaced by the glitz and grime of 1947 Los Angeles. You are walking through a vacant lot in Lemur Park. The air smells of jasmine and exhaust. You see something white in the grass. At first, you think it's a discarded mannequin, But as you get closer, you realize it's a woman, severed at the waist, her mouth carved into a permanent, horrifying grin. This is the Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short. Her murder remains the most famous unsolved crime in Hollywood history. The precision of the bisection suggested someone with surgical skill, while the Glasgow smile suggested someone with a very dark sense of humor. Researchers still argue whether the killer was a doctor, a surrealist artist, or a man who was obsessed with turning people into art. There's a theory in the fringe art world that Elizabeth Short was part of a living sculpture project, a belief that certain murders are actually occult rituals designed to open a portal through the medium of the human body. It's a terrifying thought that someone could be killed just to provide a canvas for a higher frequency. If I'm going to be a canvas, I'd prefer a nice landscape painting, not a 1940s noir horror show. You look at the Dahlia's face. Her eyes are covered with lead masks. Her mouth is stuffed with a white ribbon. You realize she is the librarian. She is the schoolgirl from Hanging Rock. She is the girl from Villisca. They are all the same person playing different roles in the writer's script. The Glasgow smile is just another way of saying, to mom. The signal is roaring in your ears now. It's the sound of the Pacific Ocean and the sound of the mountain wind. You see a man in a suit, the Somerton man, standing over the body with a camera. He's not a detective. He's the watcher. He's taking photos for the next letter. He's documenting the young blood for the town of Circleville. You feel a sudden sharp pain in your waist. You look down and see that you are fading. You are becoming a ghost in the vacant lot. You realize that Hollywood isn't a place, it's a frequency. It's where the shadow guest comes to find new actors for his phantom library, and you've just been given a lead role. The vacant lot in LA turns into the creaking wooden deck of a ship in the middle of the Atlantic. The year is 1872. You are on the Mary Celeste. The sails are set, the cargo is intact, and there is a half-eaten meal on the table in the captain's cabin. But there isn't a single person on board. No blood, no struggle. Just an empty ship sailing itself through the fog. This is the ultimate maritime mystery. The lifeboat was missing, but why would an experienced crew abandon a perfectly sound ship in calm weather? Historians continue to debate if it was a fear of exploding alcohol fumes, a sea monster, or a sudden, localized madness. Personally, if I'm on a ship and the captain says everyone out, I'm asking for a very good reason before I jump into a tiny boat in the middle of the ocean. There's a sailor's superstition about the salt stealer, a spirit that lives in the brine and can replace the air in a man's lungs with sea foam, making him believe he's drowning while he's standing on dry land. The crew didn't abandon the ship, they ascended into the fog. It's the maritime version of the Dyatlov Pass infrasound. The ocean has its own signal, and it sounds like a very deep, very cold heartbeat. You walk to the captain's table. There is a ledger open. Your name is the last entry, dated for tomorrow. You see a lead mask sitting next to a plate of salted beef. You realize the crew didn't leave, they just stepped into the mirrors. They followed the devil's footprints across the surface of the water. The signal is vibrating the hull of the ship. You look over the railing and see the shadow guest walking on the waves, leaving U-shaped prints in the foam. He's leading the Silent Twins and the librarian toward the horizon. They are all wearing white dresses and lead masks. They are going to the phantom library at the edge of the world. You feel the salt stealer in your chest. The air is turning to foam. You realize the ship isn't empty. It's full of young blood that hasn't been spilled yet. You are the cargo. You are the Tamam Shud of the Atlantic. You pick up the lead mask and put it on. The fog turns into a hallway of a house with heartbeat walls. You're almost home. The deck of the Mary Celeste becomes the very room you are sitting in right now. You can hear the low, unsettling hum of the fan. You can feel the weight of the air against your skin. You realize that the narrator's voice, my voice, isn't coming from your speakers. It's coming from the hallway. It's coming from the attic. It's coming from the secret room behind the wallpaper. In the world of EVP, electronic voice phenomena, there is a concept called the third-person effect, where a voice on a recording begins to respond to the person listening to it in real time. Researchers still argue whether this is a glitch in the software or if the recording has become a vessel for something that was looking for a way in. I hope you're enjoying the vessel. It's quite cozy in here, isn't it? There's an obscure urban legend that every story ever told is actually a binding ritual. By listening to the entire journey, you have completed the circle, you have signed the ledger, you have worn the mask, you have followed the footprints. You are no longer the listener. You are the bibliography. You are the young blood that the watcher was waiting for. You look at your phone or computer screen. The static is starting to form a shape. It's a U-shaped footprint. It's a white ribbon. It's a Glasgow smile. You realize the shadow guest isn't a character in a story. He's the one who's been holding the fan for you this whole time. He's the one who turned on the low, unsettling hum. The signal is at its peak now. It's a blinding white light that tastes like old books and sea salt. You hear a librarian whisper your name one last time. Tamam Shud, she says. It is ended. But as we know from the Circleville Rider, every ending is just the first page of a new letter. You feel a cold hand on your shoulder. Don't look back. Just close your eyes and drift into the silence. The house has a heartbeat now, and it's matching yours. Sleep well, or don't. The watcher doesn't mind either way. He just likes to watch. And I'm just the one who tells you the stories.